Hey, I'm Kat, mom of 3 and founder of Ritual, the company setting a new standard in the supplement industry. When I was pregnant, I remember staring at my prenatal vitamins and thinking, what's in this stuff? All I found were vitamins high in heavy metals and lacking in the very essential nutrients we need. So we scoured the world for the best quality ingredients, backed by clinical studies, third-party tested, and Ritual's Essential Prenatal was born. Join our family of skeptics with 40% off your first month when you visit ritual.com/podcast.
This is
Make It Plain.
MIP
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make It Plain.
Get woke.
Folks, what's going on the ground in Minneapolis? We need to get into that. And we're happy to have with us an award-winning filmmaker and social practice artist in the field of story-based community organizing. His films have been featured at national and international festivals, including the Toronto International Film Festival and Chicago International Film Festival, winner of Best Feature Film 2003 at the Urban World Film Festival in New York. In 2011, my guest founded Bullock Creative Shop, a feature film, documentary, media art, and digital content social enterprise. He's a 2014 McKnight IFP Media Artist Fellow, a 2015 Minnesota State Arts Board grant recipient, and 2016 Intermediate Arts City of Minneapolis Creative City Making Artist, and a 2017 Bush Fellow. We're going to talk about his work, but particularly about Reclaim the Block today. You want to hear all about this. Our dear brother joins us from Minneapolis, our brother D.A. Bullock. Hey, brother, peace. How you doing, man?
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me. I'm doing well. I'm hanging in there.
It's an honor to have you, man. It's an honor to have you. And I'm really glad to hear how you have fused your creativity with action and struggle. If we could get more people to do that, Lord knows where we'd be. So yeah, we appreciate that. You know what I mean?
We have that as a tradition, like Black folks, we always love to combine the culture with the movement. And yes, I think that's when it's really resonant for us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So tell us about how long have you been in Minneapolis now?
I've lived here for 10 years and I'm originally from Chicago.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you were there, of course, when George Floyd was killed.
I was. And I was also here when Jamar Clark was killed and a number of other young Black men who were killed by the Minneapolis Police Department. So I saw a lot of the lead up to what happened when George Floyd was murdered.
But now you're doing the follow-up with Reclaim the Block. Tell us about that, if you would.
Correct. So I worked with Reclaim the Block and on their communications team. And, what we're trying to do as an organization is firstly, shine a light on how much incredible work we are doing in communities in doing just that, reclaiming our blocks. That's reclaiming our blocks from all kinds of violence, but particularly reclaiming our blocks and the funding for our blocks that goes into the Minneapolis Police Department. Like the Minneapolis Police Department last year had a $185 million budget. And just in comparison, that's like 100 or 200 times the size of like the health department budget for the city of Minneapolis, right? So we're talking about like a large portion of our public investment all of our public safety investment goes into the police department. So our organization is about having public participation in how we do that budgeting and also have public participation in how we redistribute those funds into other ways of making ourselves safe.
And Reclaim the Block and you all favor defunding the police too, right?
Correct.
Now,
And
do you go as far as abolish too?
well, personally, I do. And I think we are in a abolition framework, meaning, just the like I said, I've seen a lot of what Minneapolis Police Department has done in the Black community in terms of violence and killing unarmed young Black men. And so I finally came to the conclusion that the only way to keep us completely safe from that violence is to remove us from contact with that entity. And so, we need to develop other ways of doing accountability and social contract within our communities, because they failed us on two levels. One is the violence that we've been touched by as a result of being in contact with the police department, but also it's just a lack of competence around public safety. Like, our young men are the ones who are getting killed in the street with this gun violence, and they don't have a response to that. They don't have a way of doing any prevention or any intervention. So we want to take those resources and use them wisely.
Man, don't get me started.
Yeah.
Listen, folks around saying, y'all crazy saying abolish. Who gonna protect us? Let me tell y'all something. Police either kill you or don't solve your crimes when you call them in. That's what That's right. Your tax dollars fund something. When Black women go missing, when your house get broken into, when your car gets stolen, they don't lift a finger. So why finance something that really is only function is to ignore your service calls, one, and two, to kill young sisters and brothers every time they get a chance? I mean, let's just be clear, man. When's the last time somebody called the police? Raise your hand, Black person, Black community, and they provided a service to you in a particular situation. So no, that's just
true indeed.
Yeah. So, and that's why I hesitate on that. People tripping. You can't say defund. You can't say abolish.
Right.
A lot of senior citizens feel like, well, no, because let me tell you something. I'm gonna be real with even the seniors, man. If somebody's intentional about breaking in your house or knocking you upside and aside the head and taking your pocketbook, DA, you and I know 9 times out of 10 they just gonna go ahead and do it.
That's right.
It's not the police. People just admit that the police are stopping that when on the days it's not happening to you. It just has not been your turn. They don't care. I'm sorry, I went off.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, that's our lived experience, and we all know that. And I think the fear in the Black community when they're like, "Well, yeah, we don't want to abolish." It's just the devil, right? It's like what they're saying is, we don't want to have nothing. Like we're used to having such a low bar when it comes to our public safety. They're like, we don't want to release from having anything. But the counter to that is to say, look, we're talking about taking that money and investing it in stuff that works for us. Like, we're going to be much safer having somebody on the block who's hired that you already know. Like, he's a trusted person on your block who comes in and mediates on those little squabbles that end up becoming bigger things and end up becoming violent crimes, right? We're much safer when we invest in things like that. And they're much more practical because we know if that brother lives on our block and that uncle lives on our block, he's not going to abuse us when he comes into that situation. He's not going to come in that situation trying to, from an outsider occupier, like, he's some wartime militarist coming into a neighborhood. He's coming into this situation like, these are my people. These are my nephews on the block. These are the people I care about and I love.
And not to go off again, but another aspect of this is some of the beefs and squabbles and revenge and knuckleheads gangbanging in the street. What percentage of them we don't even know are confidential informants anyway?
Yes.
Working for the cop, instigating. That's why I say, y'all, you ain't never seen no police violence or no George Floyd type killing from some police running up in some gang lair. You don't see them putting no knee on the neck of somebody who's slinging drugs and killing people in our community. You notice that, y'all?
Right about that.
That don't ever happen. I'm saying, y'all so bad, run up in one of them situations, but they don't.
Right.
Well, really, you run up in there. You and by the way, my man in Minneapolis is Spike Moss. By the way, we real.
Oh yeah. Spike is the man.
Yeah, that's right. You run up in that, and see what's going to happen. But they can't, because one, they know they can't do it. They scared. Two, some of them cats are working for them in the first place. So that's another reason why this whole scenario is no good for us. So tell us about the process, because I know there's been a lot of discussion, and Minneapolis has become ground zero because of George Floyd. Where is the process to move toward defund, downscale, abolition?
Sure.
Have you got other elected officials with you on this? What's happening?
So the first step in the process, obviously was the acknowledgement that we can't go back to how we were on May 25th, the day George Floyd was killed. I think that's a bigger acknowledgement than just the Black community, which is a new thing. This worldwide movement has really captured the imagination of a lot of people outside of the Black community, even though the Black community already knew. It was way past time to start these conversations, right? Because we have this lived experience where we already knew what was going on. So I think that was the first step, and it sort of broadened people's understanding of what's really happening out in the streets when it comes to the police that they employ. The second part for Minneapolis is we have this strange part of our written charter, which is like our Constitution, which mandates that we have to have a certain amount of police and mandates that the police department has to be solely the purview of the mayor. And so all these mandates within the charter that say we don't want accountability. We don't want the people to be able to hold them accountable. So the first step is there's a petition that needs 20,000 signatures from residents to say we're going to change this charter. We're going to change the structure of this charter. And instead of saying we have to have police and that's the only way we can do safety, we're going to say we're going to open this up to all the ways we can do safety. And we're going to write it in the law, in our charter, in our constitution of our city.
How is it going in getting those 20,000? Does that look positive? Are you optimistic about that?
It's looking very positive. I think it's well organized, and I think people are ignited. They have not forgotten, right? Like I think systems often rely on people just going on with their daily life and forgetting about what happened. But people are still energized. People still want change. They want real change. They don't want just politicians throwing out these words like reform. They want an actual change that they can see and feel and hear. So it's going well.
People being misled, complacent. So it's good that's not happening. Even people, being convinced or being led to believe $27 million means we got justice, we finished.
That's right.
But what's interesting to me, bruh, they picking a jury and they want people who don't know nothing about the case, don't have no bias, but they're not asking the other folk, does this $27 million affect your thinking whether or not real justice needs to be adjudicated? Now, you all already have in place. Tell us about this, because this is where the rubber hits the road. And this is what we're going to do to allay people's anxiety about having no white police. There are already programs in the city you all have that do group violence intervention, and is Reclaim the Block kind of working with those and getting everybody organized around that?
Yeah, we're certainly a supporter of transferring a significant amount of the funding that goes to MPD. MPD has funding for everything from horses to, like youth basketball leagues and everything, all the things that they really should not be doing. Those things should be funded through community organizations. And then within the city, in the health department, there's an Office of Violence Prevention, which employs people actually from these communities, like to do that intervention work and to do that connection work and to go see people when they're in the hospital, recovering from a gunshot wound, right at that point where they need to talk to somebody who knows about that life. And those are the people we need to be investing in. So we certainly support shifting those dollars from the Minneapolis Police Department into programs like Office of Violence Prevention.
What up, y'all? It's Torre, and on my podcast, Torre Show, I interview successful Black rappers, actors, writers, politicians, all sort of people to talk about what powered their rise, how they built their success, and what their superpower is. Through our conversations, you'll learn about how you can achieve your goals. Listen to Torre Show on Apple Podcasts or anywhere podcasts are streamed. And go further and become a member of our community on Patreon, where you'll get exclusive episodes.
I made the generalization about some in our community being afraid of this, but in Minneapolis proper, is that a problem? Are there senior African Americans in the city, black folk, middle class, whatever, who are resistant to what you're trying to do, or people even in Minneapolis say, hey, yo, we might need to deal with this?
Yeah, there most certainly are. And, I don't denigrate them for having those concerns. I just want to have a more robust conversation with them about sort of the honest conversation about what we were really faced with in the first place, which is incompetence when it comes to our safety, right? All of the homicides for the past 10 years have happened in North Minneapolis, which is the black community of Minneapolis, right? So you're talking about all these young black men who weren't protected in the first place by the police, and then their crimes weren't even solved by the police. And so we relying on the community to come up with all the intel and all the information about those crimes anyway. So again, we might as well just forge forward with bravery and honesty, and just say to each other, like, what would be ideal if we wanted to really think about how we want to deal with these young people and how we want to have these conversations with them. And then ultimately, like, after they pay their due to community, and do accountability, how do we welcome them back? Because it's no solution to say we're going to lock people up for their lifetime. That's just not sustainable, and that's not real for our communities. We know we're inviting folks back all the time, and we need to have a really robust conversation about how we're bringing them back, integrating them back into the community, and making sure they're productive when they get back into the community.
And see, to me, another aspect of this too is even for the people who say, oh, we need a police. Well, if the police decide on one day out of 365 to come and try to investigate something, some of them same police say, well, what information do you have? I'm not telling you nothing. I'm not telling the police.
Sure.
So again, what is the point of any of that? And also, correct me if I'm wrong, what I also take from this is, and maybe we need to market it more this way, this is us getting back to our traditional roots and culture as a people. Because back in the day, I don't know how old you are, but back in the day when I was coming up, if Mark and DA were running down the street, other parents heard about it. Other parents intervened.
Yes,
we communicated, and we were raised in that level of community and communalism, where folks was looking out for. And if somebody, if your parents saw me doing something wrong, say, hey man, I'm gonna call your mama. But until I get your mama on the phone, you ain't doing this. Come on off the street. That's right. So it kind of, and maybe that's one way we need to get folk to see, because the elders of the generation who are afraid of it, that's how they were raised.
Right.
They were clean because the parents up and down the block didn't let them do nothing wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you're right. We in the same generation. You're right. That is exactly why, what I can attribute to my success in life, or my staying on a path that was, about trying to get a better education, or about trying to do these improvement things, was because I had a whole community of people looking out for me. Right. It wasn't because, a police officer or a police force intervened in my life. It was because of the community. It was because of those people on the block that really looked out for me and put me on the right path. And that's even including some people that were doing dirt on the block. I mean, let's be real. Like, there were some OGs that were like, nah, man, you're not about this lifestyle. Right. And they had real frank talks with me that made sure I was on that right path. Because they were like, yeah, you're a smart kid. I know, I heard you out there talking. I want you to keep talking. Like, don't be doing this over here. I'm looking at you. I'm making sure you're not doing that. And so that, you're right. That's been our roots. That's been our culture. That's been the source of our safety throughout our time in this country. And so we only paying homage to that and getting back to that. So I would say that to those elders too. Like, I know you could be fearful about the immediate notice, but let's just be honest. The police aren't really doing much for us in the way of that anyway. And we're spending a lot of money. That's right. On keeping them doing nothing.
How big? You said it's $185 million. How many? What's the size of the force? How many people on the Minneapolis?
Right now, it's about 600 to 700 active duty officers.
$185 million, 700 people.
Yeah. Well, there are probably 1,000 people like with civilians that work in the department as well. So Yeah, you're still talking about that's $1 billion in 8 years spent on something that is not even moving the needle when it comes to safety in North Minneapolis. Again, like
Yeah.
with all these young Black folks, they not even moving that conversation at all. In fact, I had a conversation with a young man who's on probation for a gun charge, and he was like trying to get himself out of the situation, like extricate himself out of the lifestyle. And the only thing that told him was, well, when you're ready to go to work for us, which means become an informant, then we can help you out. Otherwise, we got nothing for you.
Right. See,
yep.
And that's the wheel they keep spinning in the game they running. If people who are listening, as undoubtedly they are, because the other part of this, it's not just the fear of losing the police. It's a little intimidating. And if you don't have the resources in your community to really pull people together, I mean, that's part of the problem. I keep telling Brother Bullock, and I'm sure you agree with me, Judas Ain't the Black Messiah is not the movie we watch for Netflix and chill.
Right.
I'm telling people that, how this, you see that? That ain't what that's for. That's to give us a lesson and some instruction about how our community is divided. And we still divided, except now COINTELPRO, they don't have to spend money on COINTELPRO. We do it to each other for free.
That's right.
So what is some advice or some guidelines, some what would you say to people listening to say, hey, I want to get something like this up and running in my community?
I'd say there's a really good website called millionexperiments.org. I'd say look at some of these, because we have the beauty of technology now, which connects us in a way where we weren't connected a long time ago, right? So we can know what's going on in Jackson, Mississippi, and we can know what's going on, in Lawndale area in Chicago, and we can know what's going on in Detroit. We can know what we are doing in other cities that is working. And I would say, network with those other places and find out how they started their programs, because they could be as small as, I think there's a program that like initiates barbers, because that's where young folks are going to get their haircut and get they like the front line of violence prevention, right? Which makes sense in our community. So, and it might be simple to get something like that started in your own community because you already have the barbers, you already have the people who are in touch in the community. And it might just be a conversation of like sitting down with all of them and being like, look, we're going to do this program where we're doing active violence prevention in all our barbershops. And that's a first step. And we start to take that over, and we would all be surprised at how quickly we can eliminate this fear of needing the police. Because we'll come to the realization that, oh yeah, we were doing this on our own anyway.
And just like you said, when we were coming along, even the OGs that looked out for us, we admired. Our kids need to see Black adults that they can admire and see doing positive things so that they will emulate that same behavior and pay it forward. And so that's really, so now how is Reclaim the Block integrated with your creativity and film and whatnot? Because it seems to me that would also be helpful if you're doing a documentary or something, or just kind of documenting all this process. I think that would be very helpful to people in other areas who want to start something.
Absolutely. So, I'm a filmmaker by trade, and that's where I get my vision and my sort of passion. And so I am actively creating a documentary now about the whole movement after George Floyd's death, and what's happening here is the epicenter, but also what's happening around the country, as we coalesce around these ideas. Also, we're supporting a lot of creative and cultural work in the community too, like artists. There's this beautiful organization called Black Table Arts that just opened up a building. It's like one of the first Black arts owned spaces in Minneapolis, even though we have this robust Black population, that we up until now didn't even have spaces to gather. So those kind of things we're completely in support of, and always uplifting, because we know it's more important than just working on the policy. It's about working on our entire life and our whole holistic way of being, and the culture is so important in that. The storytelling is so important in that the music is so important in that, all of these elements that come together so well we know when a movement is really taking hold because it has all of those components.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really excited about that too.
No doubt. And speaking of money, folks, imagine the difference it'll make in our young people's lives if, the arts centers are funded, the arts programs, their creativity is funded, right? I was blessed, Brother Bullock, to have interviewed Mary Wilson a year or so ago, and no idea she was going to pass away.
Yeah.
God rest her soul. But you know what I asked her? Just being playful. And what was it about y'all in Detroit? What was in the water that y'all was so good?
Right.
She told me, she said, there wasn't nothing in the water, Ma. She said the school music programs were funded.
That's
and
right.
we took music in public school. That's what she told me.
I love that.
Where's that now? That's gone. But the police got $185 million.
You're right about that.
I mean, so folks, let's just, again, all you older people, I know I done touched your soul now because you feel that when y'all were coming along, y'all took music class. Who was gone by the time I came around? Hell, I could have been the next Charlie Parker. Gone.
Right.
Who knows?
Right.
But imagine if you got $185 million doing nothing for you. Imagine if, and that's the city budget, we're going to put even a third of that money in arts programs in the public school system.
That's right. I tell people, just look at all these rich suburbs around Minneapolis and notice they don't have giant police departments. It's not because they're better people than we are. It's because they got an art center in the middle of their main street. It's because they got all of these wonderful cultural services flourishing throughout their little towns. And they invest in their art to the tune that they invest in their police department for that very reason. But somehow, for us to say that is like, it's like a foreign or alien concept, because that's only because they want to see us in a very narrow framework, which is we have to be over policed and under protected.
Right.
And we're going to break out of that framework because we are the creators of culture. So it's only natural that we have all of that, sort of physical space that's invested in. We have all of that sort of head space that's invested in, like you said, like in the schools and in the learning. Like that could be a fundamental like shift in the way Black investment in Black communities, right? Like if we start talking about it in those terms, like we're going to determine the value of why our education needs to include arts and music and all the culture elements right along with our math and the sciences.
Right.
Yeah.
Bro, this is beautiful, man. And looking forward to hearing more about this. I'm definitely looking forward to, any documentary footage you're going to be sharing about this process. Folks, everybody listening should be about this life. Start thinking that way and stop tripping off of defund and abolish. Folks has lost their minds over that. And that's just half of it.
Agreed.
Because I know you agree with me that we really need to be about this reparations too.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's defund on defense and there's reparations on offense. Again, we can take care of ourselves. Brother Amos Wilson wrote in his book, police come and occupy our communities militarily and don't even bother to consult with our communities about what is best for our own communities. So this is very, very important. We invite you to check out reclaimtheblock.org, learn more, be on the lookout for this brother. We're going to have him back. And I'm going to be challenging people to be thinking this way. If defund trips you out, just don't say defund. But you're going to do your own community healing, community nonviolence, community mediation piece. Call it that. Yeah. Because the police ain't doing it. And when you realize, y'all, that you paying heavy tax dollars for something that ain't doing squat, you be right here with Brother Bullock at reclaimtheblock.org.
Yeah. I say if you don't like defund the police, how about refund your block? Like that's what you want.
I like
you want refund your block.
That's right. Yeah, refund the block. Brother Bullock, we thank you, man. Keep us posted on everything you're doing, man. And any way I can be of any support, just let me know, bro.
Will do. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thanks for getting woke and listening to Make It Plain. Please remember to listen, like, subscribe, and wherever you get your podcasts, please give the show a 5-star rating. And please do spread the word. Let's all continue to pray for each other during this pandemic and this police-demic. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.
Hey, I'm Kat, mom of 3 and founder of Ritual, the company setting a new standard in the supplement industry. When I was pregnant with my first daughter, I remember staring at my prenatal vitamins and thinking, what's in this stuff? All I found were vitamins high in heavy metals, synthetic colorants, and lacking in the very essential nutrients we need. I believe women deserve to know what they are putting in their bodies and why. So at 4 months pregnant, I quit my job to reinvent the prenatal vitamin. We scoured the world for the best quality ingredients, backed by clinical studies and third-party tested for heavy metals and microbes. And this year, we were awarded the Purity Award from the Clean Label Project, the supplement safety certification that tests for 200 harmful chemicals and toxins. With Ritual, you'll know where your ingredients come from and why we use them. Join our family of skeptics with 40% off your first month when you visit ritual.com/podcast.